Views expressed by Hoot and Holler storytellers do not reflect those of Blue Ridge PBS and may contain themes and language not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Blue Ridge PBS and ECHO present Hoot and Holler, a live storytelling event recorded at the Historic Grandin Theatre in Roanoke, Virginia.
My little caterpillar was born on a day of hope, September 11th, 2004, with the requisite pink hat and all things girly. My first live birth of 7 pregnancies, this child was a dream come true. Despite some motor challenges that made nursing difficult, my longed-for baby was perfect. Deep brown eyes, red hair, and a smile that could light up every room when things were at their best. My baby was struggling with bloating, irritable bowels, and sleeplessness that made motherhood quite a challenge. My gut told me something wasn't right. Motor skills definitely lagged behind, but one thing Cal did was speak early. Kitty was said over and over as my parents' cat would come into the room. Duck, duck was a favorite toy that was presented. By a year old, there were more than a dozen different words, until there weren't. I don't know when they disappeared, but sometime between 12 and 15 months, Callum became quiet, except for the cries of hunger and fatigue. It seemed as though a cocoon had formed, impenetrable by those of us on the outside. A diagnosis of pervasive developmental disorder was given, followed by autism, and the separation between our worlds seemed to be growing. There was even a physical separation and a physical cocoon when going through hyperbaric oxygen treatments. In order to heal a brain infection and leaky gut, Callum and I would climb into what looked like a giant tube, which was then sealed and pumped full of pure oxygen. It was super hot in there, but we made the best of it as we shared the breath of life. There was diagnosis after diagnosis, but the ultimate one for me as a mom was failure to thrive. My beautiful child was struggling, and so was I. I felt like a failure as a parent. Failure to thrive meant failure to succeed as a mother in my mind. I, too, entered a cocoon, but mine was made of constant anxiety and depression. I needed Ambien to sleep, caffeine to wake. My marriage was failing, my child was failing developmental tests, and so, too, I must be failing. Yet while this may sound like the worst of times, it was also the best of times. My mom and I alternated our work schedule, so she worked the days I was off, and vice versa, so she would come over every afternoon she worked. We would sit and watch Cal play in the yard, and this happened to just be the time of the passing of the monarch butterflies. We'd always noticed Cal loved butterflies, but this wasn't unusual because there was a love of animals. Yet something was unusual about them. The butterflies seemed to love Callum. Standing in the yard, the butterflies would flock to Cal as if a tasty nectar. We would watch as the butterflies were carried around and landing on Cal's head. The butterflies weren't flitting around to be caught. They were actually landing. There was no effort. They seemed to know one another. But then, as seasons do, the fall passed and the butterflies migrated away. As we continued to work through the challenges of life in a cocoon, the winter passed and spring arrived. We had all but forgotten about the butterflies until I got a call at work. My mom never called me at work. "You won't believe this," she said, "but today we saw the first butterfly of the season, and it won't leave Callum alone. We tried coming inside, and it's like the butterfly is stuck to Cal's clothes like glue. It's nap time, and the butterfly's on their shirt." And sure enough, when I returned from work 2 hours later, there was the butterfly. Interesting behavior, we thought, as we pried it off and introduced it to my parents' butterfly bush. Except it wasn't just this one beautiful yellow butterfly. As the days went on and the butterflies returned for the season, they flocked to Cal, flying, landing, seeming to play games. My dad went so far as to take old window screens and build a giant box for Cal to stand in, where the butterflies would cover them. Each evening they would let the butterflies go, but each day they would return, 30, 40, 50 butterflies at a time. While Cal had no verbal language of their own, it became evident they spoke butterfly. During this time, Cal blossomed. Syllables of words began. It will come as no surprise as one of the first words to return was buzz buzz, a way of talking to the butterflies. The cocoon began to open. Also during this time, my cocoon began to open. I created new avenues of support, friendships, and moved into a new home. My depression and anxiety were well under control, and we returned to a life of work, rest, and play. I was able to look back at the challenges we faced with gratitude and learn to be a support for other parents. Years passed, and Callum continued to love the butterflies, but didn't seem to attract them in the same way. And while I don't remember when the cocoon began to thicken, it definitely occurred as my early teen began to withdraw. In order to crack the cocoon, a new language would be needed once again. Mom, I think I'm different than the others. I think I'm gay. You're perfect, my little caterpillar. As with the struggles of early childhood, Cal spent periods retreating inwards, sometimes part of my world, sometimes not. Excelling in school, social interactions were becoming more and more difficult as they recognized they were different from their peers. I once again felt the pangs of failure as our communication seemed more and more strained. Mom, I don't fit. My body is not my own. I cannot stand the way it feels. While I don't understand, I love you, my little caterpillar. More tension became present as Cal struggled internally, and I once again entered another period within my cocoon of depression. I couldn't understand what my child was experiencing or how to help. I was lacking in the knowledge of gender nonconformity and was not the support I wish I had been. While I was accepting, my words were sometimes unhelpful and other times downright hurtful. I just couldn't figure out what I was feeling other than the loss of the child I thought I knew. Without a new vocabulary and emotional growth, one or both of us was going to be stuck in that cocoon. During this time, a period of grieving began as my mother began her own transition from this world. As she lay dying, and Cal was with her on February 28th, 2021, the first butterfly of the year came and knocked at the window. It seemed to bring it with it the words I was longing for. Cal, I miss you. I was grieving my beliefs about the child I thought I had birthed. I felt confused, lost, and alone in the journey. I watched as long hair was cropped, as I turned my back and cried in the hair salon. I mourned as my child harmed their own body, feeling it acutely in my own. I watched as my child struggled with an unaccepting parent, feeling as though somehow this meant I had to be even better. But just as the pain seemed too great to bear, the language of a mighty and brave caterpillar began to open the cocoon. Mom, I'm transgender. My name is Callum, and although I don't know how this is going to go, I need you to see me for who I am. You're perfect, my little caterpillar. I'm here with you. Once again, we sought support and made new friendships. We utilized the resources of the Diversity Center and the Youth Saga program to not only support ourselves, but begin a path of supporting others. We did it together. Not to say the path was easy, but the path was clearer. As the cocoon opened, my little caterpillar is no more. A butterfly has emerged as a 19-year-old transgender man flying into his best life in Richmond. He is studying to become a teacher, a changer of lives. Failure to thrive my ass. The transformation has been the most beautiful thing I've been witness to in my life. He now bears witness to this period of his life with a tattoo of 3 butterflies on his upper arm, one for his grandfather, one for his grandmother, and one for himself, the most beautiful butterfly of all.